Hi, welcome to the Knitting Expat Podcast. This is episode 101 and welcome. My name is Mina and I'll be your host today. Today is Friday the 5th of May and I'm trying to record during nap time. We will see how it goes. Layla's currently sleeping. I just put her down for her lunch nap, which is supposed to be the longest nap of the day, so we will see how long I actually get. The weather's pretty miserable today. It's been pretty good all week, but today it is absolutely chucking it down with rain. It's pretty grey outside, so apologies if the lighting's a bit dark, but I've tried a slightly different setup, so I'm closer to the window and a slight angle, so hopefully the lighting should be better for the things that I'm showing you, to compensate for the darkness. You can see it's quite dark in the background. Anyway, so we have a sleeping baby. I don't know if you can see that or not. Hello and welcome to new and returning viewers. If you are coming back, thank you so much for coming back and spending more time with me. If you are new, thank you for checking me out. This is generally a knitting podcast. There are a few other little bits in there every now and again. I recently had a baby just over about 2.5 months ago now, so there's generally a bit of chatter about her towards the end. And I live in New York in the US with my husband, our 2 cats and our baby girl. So that's if you're new and you didn't know anything about me. And yeah, I think we're just gonna dive right in. You can find me all over the place on the internet, mainly Instagram and Ravelry, and you can find the Ravelry group as well as the Knitting Expat Podcast. I have links to everywhere and all my usernames etc down below the video on YouTube and in the episode thread in the Ravelry group, so you should easily be able to find wherever I am online. There are show notes at knittingexpat.wordpress.com. Again, that's linked below, and you can find my patterns for sale on Ravelry as well. Again, that's linked below. I think that's it. Thank you so much to everyone who contacts me, sends me messages, introduces themselves in the Ravelry group, or comments on some of the other threads and takes part in the knit-alongs that we have going on. I really appreciate it. And so I'm going to dive right in with finished objects. First off, I'm going to show you a finished object that I actually finished a while ago, beginning of this year, before Layla was born. This was the Union Square socks, which is the 3rd pattern in the New York Sock Club collection, pattern club that's kind of going on at the moment. So the 3rd month started on the 1st of May, and these are the Union Square socks that I designed for this month. And I've used, the yarn is by the Cozy Knitter on her Bliss base in the New Horizons colorway. There's actually 3 variations of the stitch pattern in the pattern, and this is the first variation. This was I think it was the right aligned pattern or version of the pattern. I mean, they're all quite similar, just variations on a theme, so you just have options, you can mix and match it up. And as per usual, I've only done the patterning down the front. It is an eyelet rib pattern essentially. I think it works really well with self-striping yarn. Like, it doesn't obscure the self-striping at all, like you still see the stripes very clearly, but it just adds a bit of fun, a bit of texture, and it's a very easy knit. Like I said, there's 3 variations. 2 variations are 4-row repeats, and the 3rd variation is an 8-row repeat. But you can actually change the number of rows within each repeat to match up with your stripes. So for example, this striping yarn was a 4-row striper approximately, so it works well with a 4-row repeat. But if you have a self-striping yarn that's wider, thicker stripes, that's like 6 rows per stripe, then you can alter the repeat, because there's only 1 pattern row within in the repeat for the 4-row repeat, and there's 2 pattern rows in the 8-row repeat. You can alter the number of plain rows you knit to adjust to suit your stripes. I hope that makes sense, and I'm pretty sure that's explained in the pattern, but I just thought I would verbally explain that. And you'll see one of my works in progress is another pair of these, so, and that's slightly different, so I'll show you how I've adjusted for that one. So I just wanted to quickly show you those. Like I said, out of the Cozy Knitters yarn, Bliss Base, New Horizons colorway, which came with a contrasting yarn for the cuffs, heels and toes. Right, then, so that's an old finished object, but one I obviously couldn't show you at the time when I had finished it. Next up, I have finished object is just a pair of vanilla socks. This will be a gift pair of socks. I'm not sure for who yet, but it's sort of the standard women's size sock that I knit for gift knitting, and it pretty much fits most people pretty well. I've not had any complaints so far, so I'm sort of sticking with it. Most of the women I know either have similar size feet to me or a little bit smaller, so I knit one of two sizes basically for women that I know. And I find socks are actually fairly flexible in terms of sizing. So there we go. It's just simple, plain vanilla. I did a garter German shorter heel with the mini heel flap adjustment, which is in my Mina's vanilla sock recipe. And the yarn is by Ice Yarns. It's a Turkish company, and it's just, it wasn't didn't have a colorway name. It was their mini sock. I'm just calling it the Purples colorway. And knit these on 2.25mm high sharps, my go-to sock knitting needles. And third pair of socks finished objects to show you this week are this pair that I knit for my dad. So yeah, and this is by Wolfiend. The yarn is by Wolfiend in her Lothlorien colorway. Also knit these on 2.25mm high sharps. I knit these concurrently, so technically two at a time because I knit them together at the same time, but on separate needles. I've started doing that every now and again. I typically have two pairs of socks on the go. One pair I knit concurrently and one I knit two at a time on one needle, just because I find sometimes knitting them concurrently is more convenient for certain situations. So anyway, this is what that colorway knits up like. It's just really nice sort of foresty greens and tonalities based on that. And what I did was a sort of a simple garter rib type pattern, and I went all around the leg for this one. I don't typically do patterning on the back, but this was such a simple pattern that I thought it would be nice. So yeah, that's just how I explained how I did the patterning in the last episode, so if you want more details on that, you can check out that episode. And I actually carried on the ribbing pattern from the sides down into the toe and down the middle of the toe as well. I don't typically carry on patterning onto the toe of socks, but I thought why not, I'd give it a go. It looked like it might work and it doesn't look too bad. I'm not sure I would bother doing it again, but it was fun. I was curious to see what it would look like. And again, I did garter, the German short row heel and garter stitch with modified heel flap adjustment. That will focus. There we go. Like I said, these are from my dad, so I'm really liking the garter stitch heel at the moment. I feel like it's even more mindless than the regular German short row heel because it's all knit. You don't actually have to do any purling. Then next up, I have two finished objects that are the same pattern. It's a new design that I'm working on. It's pretty much written up. I still have a few tweaks and stuff to do to it, but it should be ready for test knitting soonish. And it's this design. This is the little baby girl dress that I knit up pretty quickly actually last week. Was it last week? Was it the week? I think it was last week. God, the time seems to be flying by. Last week when Perry was away for 3 days, I worked, this was basically the project I worked on while he was out of town. And yeah, I really like how this turned out. I've had this idea for a baby girl's dress for a while now, and finally sat down and worked it out and got it done, and then knit up a sample of it. I've written up the pattern based on this, and then I've knit up a second version, which I'll show you in a second, which is slightly different. I was playing with different ideas to see what I preferred, but this is what will be the sort of 6 to 12 month-ish size and because it's garter stitch at the top, it stretches and it grows with the child, so it should last for quite a while. And little picot bind off detail on the sleeves and at the hem, which obviously you could leave out. You don't have to do the picots if you don't like picots, but I just thought that gave it quite a sort of a girly touch to it. And this is the yarn I used. Is actually self-striping yarn for the body, for the skirt portion, but it is yarn from the Cozy Knitter again, and this is again on her Bliss base. She sent this for me to knit something for Layla out of, and I thought socks are a little bit ridiculous for her right now because she's so tiny, but I wanted to knit her something out of this pretty soon, so I thought it would be perfect for this dress, especially because the stitch count in the skirt section wasn't going to be so much that it would disrupt the self-striping. And even though the stripes are basically 1.5 rows only, I still really like the effect of that. And the colourway, sorry I should have mentioned, is Antique Roses, and this is the contrasting skein that mini skein she sends with her sock yarn. And so you can see that up close. It's really sort of nice soft colours, and the buttons in the back that I had in stash, nothing particularly special, but the colour sort of matched the dress quite nicely, I thought. So that's the first one that I knit up. And then the second one I knit up, I was knitting up the smaller size, which is, I had it down as 0 to 6 months, but having knitted it up now, it looks more like a 0 to 3 month-ish size. So I'm going to knit this one again, having tweaked the numbers a little bit to see how this works. And I did this with a much slimmer sort of skirt option for it. I did this more like a sort of t-shirt style, and I've tried this on Layla and it fits her perfectly, but I didn't quite like how it was looking on the top. It looked really awkward on top with the slimmer skirt. It definitely works better with the fuller skirt, so I'm going to reknit this size in the fuller skirt option for this age to see how that works up, because even though Layla's she's 10 weeks old now, for the last couple of weeks she's been fitting like 3-month size clothes perfectly since she was 2 months old, so this fits her like really nicely right now, and it fits like a onesie fits her, like a nice fitted onesie. But anyway, so this is knit out of Shirsty Cat yarns in her Nightwood colourway. This is on the 100% merino base. This is the Nightwood, and this was such a quick knit that I knit this up in a day, even with a baby to look after. That was how quick this is. It took 38 grams of yarn. It is so small, it really didn't take up that much. And again, just some little buttons I had in stash sewn onto the back there, and again with the picots. Like I said, I think I'm going to reknit this with the rest of the yarn that I have left, because I have more than half the skein left, which should be enough to knit another one in this size with a fuller skirt, and see how that works before I make a decision on whether or not. So I'm not sure about including this version in the pattern or not. I think I'm just going to have the pattern with this version, and then I'll include notes on if you want to have a less full, you don't want the skirt to be as full as this, where you can do that modification. And these both were knit on I should have mentioned US 4s, 3.5mm needles. So that's these two. Maybe if Layla wakes up later, I'll dress her in one of these to show you what it looks like on the baby. Or maybe I'll take some footage later of that and add that in here somewhere, hopefully, if I remember. If not, it'll be at the end of the episode or at the beginning in the intro. Sorry, she's just moving, so I'm just making sure she's not waking up. No, she's fine. Okay, so let's move on to works in progress. I have a few to share with you this week. We will start with this one. So this is in a project bag by Daisy Girl and Company, which I showed you a few weeks ago when I first received it, and we actually have one up for grabs as a prize that I'll be announcing later this episode, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, so this is the project bag I'm using. As you can see, it's got a nice clear panel so you can see your project inside, which is handy sometimes when you can't remember what you have. So what I'm working on here is another pair of Union Square socks, which I'm knitting concurrently. Like I mentioned, I do this every now and again, especially with pattern socks. It's quite nice to do them concurrently sometimes. It does feel like they go a little bit faster. And the yarn I'm using is Cascade Heritage Prints in the 08 cotton colorway. So it's Cascade Heritage Prints. It's not a fancy label, and it's not going to focus. But yeah, it's color number 8, and it's cotton. Is what it's called. The yarn isn't cotton. It's 75 superwash merino, 25% nylon. That's what it looks like kicked up, and this is what it looks like in the socks. So this one, as you may or may not put one back in there so it doesn't get tangled, has thicker stripes. This yarn has roughly 6 row stripes based on my gauge and stitch count. 64 stitches on US ones, 2.25 millimeter. And these are high sharps, in case you're wondering. It seems to be my needle of choice. I will tell you if I ever use a different needle. And this one I'm using the 8 row repeat pattern from the pattern, but I'm doing it over 6 rows. So I've omitted 2 of the plain knit rows, and doing the pattern over 6 rows because that's how the striping works, and so it actually works out really well with getting the eyelets lined up within the stripes. I mean, I could have still done it as an 8 row repeat and it would have looked fine, but this way, you know, this is why I like this pattern so much, because it is so flexible and it can be adapted depending on your striping yarn. Obviously you don't have to knit this pattern or self-striping. You can do it on regular plain yarn like tonal, solids, speckled, variegated. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for variegated. It may not show up too great, but it'll be fine for speckled and lightly variegated tonals, things like that. Basically knit it on whatever yarn you want. There's no right or wrong, to be honest. So that's almost to the heel. I think I'm basically 3 pattern repeats away on each sock, away from the heel on that pair. My next work in progress is another pair of socks. This is the New York Sock Club socks for July. I'm re-knitting the sample for this one. That month, July's yarn is sponsored. July's pattern, the yarn sponsor is Primrose Yarn Company. So at Kelsey, who's the dyer behind Primrose, she had a trunk show in New York, in Brooklyn, back in March, and I popped along, and one of the things that she gave me was a skein of yarn to re-knit the pattern out of. The one I knitted out of originally worked fine, but it was quite a busy yarn for the pattern, I think, and I feel like this is more appropriate for the pattern. It shows off the pattern much more nicely, and I actually think it's more seasonally appropriate since it'll be coming out in July, and this is quite a nice sort of bright spring summery colorway. And the colorway is actually called Springy, and it's on her Cosmic Helix base. Jeez, words are failing me today. I am losing my ability to talk. It's 100% superwash merino, but it's a high twist yarn, and it's a very plump yarn. So that's the yarn details. If I can get that to focus. There we go. It's springy, and yeah. But having said that, it's a very plump yarn with a very high twist. Come on. There we go. And it's mostly a neutral base with really fun speckles of like oranges and yellows and a bit of pink in there. For the most part, it's like a neutral sort of creamy peach base. And I'm knitting these on 2.5 millimeter US size 1.5, which, yeah, because it is a plump yarn. I definitely don't need to have do it on US ones. I find if I have quite a plump fingering weight yarn, knitting it on US ones 2.25 millimeters can actually hurt my hands, because and I get a really dense fabric. but these I'm knitting on 2.5 millimeters, so one size up, and I'm actually doing them on 56 stitches rather than 64, so I'm doing the smaller size. I find that works for me. If I'm knitting on 2.5 millimeter US 1.5s, 56 stitches tends to be fine, but if I'm knitting on US 1s, then I use 64 stitches. That's just what works for me and how I like my socks to fit. And these are now ready for the heel. I'm not showing the front side with the pattern for hopefully obvious reasons, but you'll get to see that in a couple months. And yeah, so these are now ready for the heels, so those will be popped in pretty soon, hopefully. Weather is miserable outside. Right, so next work in progress is in my Mrs. Brown's bag, and this is another version of that dress, the baby dress that I'm working on. So let me just get this all untangled. Make sure I'm not going to lose any stitches. So this is where I'm at the moment. I've done the top portion, and I'm now working on the skirt portion. So this is actually going to be the 12 to 1 to 2 year size, essentially 12 to 24 month size. And the yarn I'm using, the yarn for the top and what I will use for the contrasting bottom for the bind off, the bottom border, is Once Upon a Corgi yarns. Jeez, come on, camera is not playing well nice with me today. Once Upon a Corgi yarn in her Lily Potter colorway. And so this is on her Stellina base. It's on her ginger base, which is 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon, and 5% gold Stellina. So it's nice and sparkly. And she'd actually, Gabby gifted me this skein. Gabby's the dyer behind Once Upon a Corgi, and she has the podcast Once Upon a Corgi as well. She gifted me this yarn back in January when we were when I met her at Vogue Knitting Live, and she'd already pre-wound it into 2 skeins for me, in case I wanted to knit socks out of it. But decided to use it for this, and I'll still have plenty left over, so I could probably still do a pair of socks. And the yarn I'm using for the skirt is a speckled colorway, and this is a speckled yarn rather, and this is Plymouth Yarn Company in the Happy Feet, 96% superwash merino, 10% nylon, and this is in the Purple Iris colorway. That's the label. Don't know if you saw that, but this is a commercial yarn. It's actually very affordable commercial yarn for sock yarn, and it's really nice. Again, nice high twist, nice and springy, and very soft. And so yeah, I'm just a couple of inches into the skirt. This is going to be a longish skirt, and kind of like the first sample I knit, it's basically got the contrasting yarn in the body, in the skirt portion of the outfit. And that's that. So that is one I kind of work on usually if Layla's awake and she's calm and sort of just laying there and not doing much, and she's kind of just having a relaxing time, or if she's just kicking about on her play mat or something, I can knit a few stitches on that one, because it's just plain knit in the round at the moment, so no thinking involved on that one, which makes it nice sort of while I'm sitting around knitting. Actually, I might grab that and knit a little bit later once I finish with the knitting section for the chatting section. The last work in progress I have to show you, well actually technically there's 2, but one's technically not a work in progress yet. The last sort of active work in progress I have to show you is my granny stripe blanket, and this is where I'm at now. It doesn't look like it's changed all that much since last time, but I moved up the marker from where I was last time, so that's where it is. That's where I was up to last time, so I've just added a few more rows since a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I'm just keeping on adding my mini skeins to that every now and again. So I'll add a couple of mini skeins in an evening. I'm using Clover E-hook, a 3.5mm It's just one of these red ones with the ergonomic grip, which is really nice, and I find that's quite easy to use. And I'm using the pattern by Attic24. So if you just Google Attic24 granny stripe blanket, you'll find the tutorial on her website. It's a free pattern, so nothing too complicated there. I chained approximately 270 stitches. I didn't actually chain, I did the chainless foundation, but approximately 270 stitches, and so it's approximately my arm span length, so which is about, I'm 5'10" height wise, so it's approximately that lengthwise. Yeah, that's coming along quite nicely. And the last thing I have to show you isn't technically a work in progress yet, because I haven't cast on, but I decided to go with the green for my Sample cardigan by Hohi Locatelli, and I did knit up my swatch. I did swatch and I've blocked it, and I've wound up all the yarn. This is the Mossman colorway by Verdant Griffin on their Little Traveller base, which is their light pink green. And so yeah, it was this nice sort of really rich sort of foresty green. I ended up going for this one for a couple of reasons. One, I really like it, and secondly, I didn't realise, but I believe the colourway that Hohi used for her sample is she knit out of a Finnish wool. Come on, focus. And I believe the colourway she used means moss in Finland, so I thought that was also appropriate. And the other reason was because the other yarn that I showed you, the other option, the gradient one, I kind of feel like that would work better in a plain sort of stockinette sweater, where the gradient and the colour changes would really be able to stand out, or with minimal texture, minimal sort of patterning in it. This cardigan has an all over texture pattern and some cables down the front, which is beautiful. I just think it might be a little bit busy with the gradient as well. So I'm going to save that gradient for something different. I already have something in mind for it, but I'll talk more about that once I've decided and I'm getting ready to cast on. So I did the swatch in the needle size recommended in the pattern, which is 3.5mm US bores, I believe. And as you can see, this is quite a loose sort of fabric. You can see it's quite see-through, which is fine. I don't mind. I actually really want a nice sort of light cardigan for like the spring, summertime. But I didn't get gauge. The pattern calls for a gauge of 20.5 stitches over 4 inches, and my gauge is 23 stitches. So that's quite a difference. That's 2.5 stitches different between what the pattern calls for and what I got. But I did some maths, and I've shared this before on the podcast how I've done this. But I did some quick maths, and I figured that if I knit the next size up than I was planning to, I was planning on knitting the large, but if I knit the extra large, then with my gauge I should still get a cardigan that fits to a large size. So sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't, but it seems to have worked out this time, so I think that's what I'm going to do. I don't really want to size up my needles because it's already quite a loose knit. You can sort of see me through it. There's quite a loose gauge already, so for the yarn, so I don't want to go up in needle size more than this. And I like how this looks. I like the drape of it. It's nice and floppy, and I think it's going to look really nice in the cardigan. Like I said, the texture doesn't show up massively in this yarn, but at the same time I actually quite like that subtlety of texture in that. So I'm hoping to have that cast on and a few rows started by the next time I record. And this is out of in a project bag that was sent to me by the lovely Cindy of Mon Sheep Shop. And yeah, so that's that one. I'm gonna cast that on once the other baby dress sample is finished. I kind of wanted to focus on that because I have the pattern written up. I just got a few tweaks to make, and I want to finish this sample and make the final tweaks to then be able to get it out for testing and stuff like that. So, and I will announce on Instagram more than likely when I'm ready for testers for that one, so please don't contact me about test knitting until I've announced that. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. So yeah, I appreciate if you wait until I call for test knitters before you contact me about test knitting anything in general. Okay, so I'm going to move on to acquisitions, and it really shouldn't be acquisitions this week. It's just wonderful, wonderful, lovely, lovely mail. And I received one package this week, but so many people contributed to this. It was absolutely, it was just totally overwhelming. I may have cried a little or a lot when I opened this package, and as I was reading all the cards and all the messages and stuff inside, it was really, really special. So thank you so much to everybody who took part and contributed something to this box of amazingness that I opened. I'd just gotten home. I picked up the mail from downstairs, and I got home. Layla was being really grumpy because she was tired, put her down for a nap, and then sat down to open this box, and honestly it was just so special. So thank you to everyone who took part in this. I will seriously, I posted to Instagram a picture of Layla with everything surrounding her, and I tagged everyone who I knew about who had contributed to this box of goodies, which I'll show you in a second in that. And so if I forget to mention everyone's names today, I might not even I'll try and remember to mention everyone's names. And actually everyone who I am aware of also has a podcast, so what I will do is I will link all the podcasts in the show notes and in the episode thread for you guys. So if you want to check out some other lovely podcasts, these wonderful people all have really lovely podcasts to check out. So if I do forget someone's name, then hopefully all their podcasts should be linked so you'll know. So this is the box it came in, and the main thing that everyone contributed towards was this amazing blanket for Layla. It's the back side. How amazing is this? There's 24 squares, 24 blocks, so 24 wonderful people took part in this, and some I know which squares are from who, others I'm not so sure about. I'm really curious who knit the pinwheel square. I think that's really fun, so I'm really curious who did that one. Yeah, it's amazing. This is just totally overwhelming, and I shared the package and everything to Perry, and he read all the cards and everything when he got home from work, and he was incredibly touched and so thankful as well. So genuinely very thankful, and massive thank you, huge thank you to Melissa of the Spicy Homemaker podcast, who organised this whole thing and put it all together and assembled the blanket, because that could not have been an easy task. So thank you so much for that. And if you were a contributor to this blanket and you didn't send a card, that's absolutely fine, but can you please let me know so I can thank you, because I think there was only 15 or 16 cards, so I only know 16 of the blocks who to thank, and there's another 8 that I don't know. So if you were a contributor, please let me know. I really appreciate it, and I'd like to be able to thank you. So yeah, that's the blanket, and it's just so special. And I used it for the backdrop for Layla's 10-week photos as well. It's just so lovely. I can't quite get over it. But a few other goodies other than all the cards that came in there. It was this cute little San Francisco onesie from Joanna who is Opera Jo on Instagram. She does the Stitching the High Notes podcast. That was really sweet and really adorable. Jeanette, who does the Bookish Stitcher podcast, sent this adorable little bib, and I've seen this saying on so many sort of like onesies and other baby things. I've always been so tempted to get it, but now Layla has a bib with it on, so that's perfect. And some Nutcracker baby leg warmings for this coming Christmas when she'll be big enough to wear them. Deanna, who has the Skeins in Schools podcast, and also has she dyes yarn as well. I'm trying to remember her yarn dyeing company name. I can't remember now, and I feel really bad about that, but hopefully if I remember I'll put it in the show notes. But she sent this adorable little counting book, Jane Eyre inspired, which I thought was really adorable. Yeah, the art in there is really lovely as well, pictures and stuff, so that was really fun. And yeah, other goodies. And then the amazing Andy of the Andre C Knits podcast sent this adorable handmade elephant for Layla, which is so cute and so adorable. And I remember seeing this on her Instagram when she made it, And I remember thinking, that's so cute, and that's just like, so when I saw this in the box, I was just completely blown away. So thank you so much, Andy. And like the attention to detail and the embroidery there is just beautiful. So everything Andy does is amazing. So I'm not surprised at all. And just seriously, just massive thank you to everybody who contributed. I don't know how many times I can say that, but I do genuinely mean it. And yeah, this is going to be a very treasured blanket for Layla, and she will know all the lovely people who contributed to this and how incredibly special and lucky she is. So before I gush any longer, we will move on. So once more, thank you so much. And now we're going to come to the knit along and giveaway news. I mentioned in the last episode that there were still several prizes to be claimed, and they are still yet to be claimed, so I'm redrawing prizes. I told you guys last time that if I hadn't heard back from people by the time I next podcasted, that I was going to redraw prize winners for the outstanding unclaimed prizes. And it's because it's been over a month, so I feel like that's fair enough. And and I've also drawn prizes for the April. I've also drawn the April prize winners for the New York Sock Club monthly FO thread, and so I'll announce those as well. So first up, we had one outstanding prize from the Podiversary giveaway, which was the 1 month subscription to the Row 1 mini skein club. So the new winner for that is number 654. That's Ms. Knits, and that should pop up on the screen for you guys here now. Then for the Knitting Expat Designs year-long cowl, I drew prizes at the end of March. Actually, none of these prizes were claimed, so they're all up for up again. The first one is a project bag by Monique of Fog Peak Creations. You will get your pick of bags from what she has available in her shop, and the new winner for that is number 201, and that's Alice Casimira, and she knits a pair of Grand Central socks. So congratulations. If you can get in touch with me, and I will put you in touch with Monique. Oh, and the same for Ms. Knits. If all the prize winners can just get in touch with me, and if it's a physical prize that I'm sending you, please send me your address. If not, contact me and send me your email address, and then I will be able to pass that on to whoever is sending you the prize, to then be able to organise all of that. The second prize for the Knitting Expat Designs cowl is some yarn from Brooke at Fully Spun, and this is her Winter in Iceland set. So it's 250 gram skeins of 100% BFL. It's 4 ounces total, and it's fingering weight. And this goes to number 155, and that's Leah Aline, I think, and she knit a cozy blanket. So if you can get in touch with me with your address, I will get this prize out to you as soon as possible. Then the next one is project bag and yarn and some stitch markers from Crit Yarn Handmade, which I showed you guys a few weeks ago. The new winner for this is number 29, Final Herald Mage. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. And she knit a pair of Diagon Alley socks. So congratulations. If you can get in touch with me with your address, I will send that out to you. And the final one from this cowl prize drawing is this set of yarn, project bag and stitch markers, and the new winner for this is number 128, and that's Lisa KH, and she knit a pair of driftwood socks. So if you can get in touch with me with your address, I will get all of these out to you as soon as I can. And if this time no one gets in touch with me within the next month, I will just add these to the prize drawing for the next lot of prizes for the Knitting Expat Designs cowl, because I think by the time the next month is up, the next round of prizes are going to be drawn anyway. So yeah, so that was all picked between entries 2 to 297, which was the end of March. Okay, and then the April Sock Club winners were drawn from posts 232 to 486, so there were 255 entries, and we have 3 prizes. The first prize is this project bag by Daisy Girl and Company. It's the same size as the one that I showed you I was using, and it's got the clear vinyl panel in the middle and a skein of self-striping sock yarn. This is by Ice Yarns. It's 100 grams, 75-25 superwash superwash wool and polyamide or nylon. So this will be a really fun pair of socks and really nice and sturdy. And the winner for this is Marcy Chow, and that's number 260, Marcy Chow. So congratulations. If you can get in touch with me with the address, I will send that out to you. 1 second. Just realised I need to add some details somewhere that I've missed. Okay. The next prize is this sock blank by Hip Wool Yarns. This is their Knittivist sock blank, so it has the word Knittivist printed on the sock blank, as well as all these fun colours. And the winner for this is number 469, and that's Purple Ducks. So congratulations. If you can get in touch with me, I will have that sent out to you soon. And the final prize is a skein of yarn by Wolfiend, and this is on her Emma's Purple, in her Emma's Purple colourway on her 80/20 sock base, which is the same base that I used to knit the pair of socks for my dad. And this goes to number 315, J'adore le café. So congratulations if you can get in touch with me. So if all the prize winners can get in touch with me, that'd be great. And then we'll figure out addresses and stuff from there and what I need to get your prizes out to you. Okay. Baby's awake. I'm hoping she'll just fall back asleep again. So we'll keep going as long as we can, and if she starts crying then I might have to run off. So we're going to move on to Q&As now. Layla seems to have woken up. I'm going to give her a chance to fall back asleep again because she really should sleep a little bit longer right now. But so we'll see. This might be abruptly ended at some point, and I may come back at a later time to try and finish this off. But we'll get started and we'll see how far we get. So Not Kidding Around asked, she wrote quite a long post, but her main question is, she says it's not knitting related, but she was curious how settling in has gone for us with our New York space being smaller than our home in Bahrain, and what with having a little one now compared to not having one, and all of her belongings as well, and how we're doing with living in a small space with a baby and stuff like that. And she's saying that you know, she's asking, you know, are the walls bulging, or does everything fit comfortably? And she lives in an older farmhouse herself, and she says she loves it, but there's not a lot of closet space, and she finds it hard to have a space for everything, and she's just wondering if we're having the same issues. Thankfully not so much. We were very lucky with the apartment that we have found. We love it. It's not big. It's pretty small actually. It's probably the smallest apartment that we've both lived in. Having said that, it's not that small either. It's not the tiniest of tiny apartments, but it has meant you know, prioritizing things that we want to keep versus things that we wanted to get rid of. We got rid of so much stuff when we first moved in. When our furniture arrived, we purged so much stuff. We sent so many things to Goodwill. We just got rid of stuff that was trash. The kitchen was the biggest space that we had to condense down, because the kitchen that we had in Bahrain before we moved here was ridiculous. It was huge. It was the size of our living room. It was massive. So we'd accumulated stuff that, you know, just because we had the space, we'd kept it. And because we didn't know how big or how small the space was that we were going to end up in over here, we didn't know what to get rid of, essentially. We didn't know what we would still have space for and what we wouldn't. Most of the electronic things that we had in Bahrain, we either sold to someone there, or we actually took back to the UK when we went in November before we moved. I took a bunch of stuff back to the UK and gave it to my parents or to Perry's parents, because we just wouldn't be able to use them here. The electronics just would not the currents wouldn't convert, because the electricity and the plugs in Bahrain were the same as in the UK. They just wouldn't suit it. Even with adapters, it wouldn't work here. So we got rid of a lot of stuff that way. As for Layla's things, to be honest, it's not so bad. The closet in her room, which is next to the bookcase behind me is pretty big. It's like a walk-in closet, and so all of her stuff fits in there for the most part. We have a couple of her playthings which are out, and generally we just leave them on this bed, which is in her room at the moment, and we bring them out when we need to use them, or her play mat with which has the toys on it. I generally use that on the bed because it's easier for me than to put her on the floor. It just helps my back a bit more. But we don't actually have that much stuff for her. She doesn't have a crib yet. She still sleeps in the bassinet next to our bed. So we didn't actually buy a crib because we didn't know where we were going to be, and once we moved in here we didn't know how our furniture was going to fit, and so we didn't know where a crib would fit or what size of a crib we could get. So we're just going to hold off and get a crib when she actually needs one. And the play mat that we've got for her is one that sort of actually changes and becomes almost like a little playpen as she gets a bit older and things, so it grows with her, and so we try to get multifunctional things. Another toy that we have for her is actually like an inflatable donut ring thing that Perry's mum got for us. It's inflatable, so if we're not using it, if we don't want it for a while, we want to put it away for a while, we can deflate it and it folds up quite small. We've tried to, wherever possible, to minimize the number of things we have for her. She doesn't have that many toys. She's mostly cuddly toys, to be honest. I've started getting a few sort of rattles and shit and things that make noise and things for her now that she's getting a little bit older. She starts to know what these things are and be able to play with them. But even then, we're trying to keep things to a minimum and mostly just use try and get multifunctional things that have more than one purpose, so that they're not that we're not just accumulating stuff. Otherwise, I try and keep the house as tidy as possible. It's a little bit impossible sometimes, and I don't stress about it too much, to be perfectly honest. But I do try to keep things tidy because then that helps to feel like things are tidier. I condensed my knitting stash and my yarn and my supplies when we got here as well. I organised everything shortly after it arrived. If you remember, if you were following back then, I did a big de-stash, and so now all of my stuff fits into one closet near our front door, which again I showed on the podcast. I did a little video that I inserted into the podcast a few months back, so I can't remember which episode that was, but it was before Layla was born. And so I feel like we're doing okay. I think if anything, Perry's the one who's struggling with the closet space because he doesn't have enough space for all of his clothes. I've actually really condensed down on my clothes. I don't have that many clothes, that much in the way of clothes anymore. Because I was pregnant, there's a lot of things that don't fit me anymore I got rid of. A lot of things I just sort of held on for years and just haven't worn for a long time I got rid of. I've kept a few things that are sentimental, but for the most part I've gotten rid of so many things. And I don't really buy clothes that often, to be honest. So generally we're doing okay, is what I'm getting at. I've always been the kind of person to be like, well, we can always just downsize. We don't need to have everything that we do have. Some things that we have are just luxuries that we don't necessarily need to have. So and overall we are very lucky with the amount of storage space that this apartment has. A lot of our friends that we've had over have commented on how great the storage space is in our apartment compared to other places that they've seen in the city. So overall I think we lucked out in that part as well, and it was actually one of the things we looked for when we were looking at apartments. We were trying to find apartments with a good amount of space. Sorry, I realised that was a bit of a ramble, so apologies for that. Okay, next question is from I Knight, and she asks, where can I buy some of those wire looking sock blockers? So she's talking about sock blockers I showed my socks on. I think they're the Bryson sock blockers. I got mine from I think it was Lime Brand. I got it from their Lime Brand yarn studios in New York and Manhattan. I know Knitty City also sells them. I'm pretty sure you can get them online. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. But I think they're called Bryson, Bryson. So you can try and Googling that and see if you find anything. And I've just noticed Layla put herself back to sleep, which is awesome. She's been getting better at doing this. She's still moving around a bit, but she's definitely asleep, so that's great. Sorry, I get a little bit excited every time she manages to do that, because we're working on getting her to be able to put herself to sleep, and if she wakes up in the middle of a nap, to be able to go back to bed. Sorry, I've just grabbed the knitting as well now, because it's mostly chatting now. The next question is from Laurie Marie, and she says, hello Mina, I'm a fellow expat knitter and recently started watching your podcast. Thank you. I'm wondering if you use any kind of technique for joggler stripes. Also, did you ever find out if your socks glowed in the dark? Oh, I think she means I did a really bright pair of socks for my mum. And she says, sorry if I'm repeating something previously asked, just got to episode 42. Thanks for all the time and effort you put into making podcasts, answering questions and sharing tips. As for the socks, I don't think they really ever were going to glow in the dark. I just meant they were that bright that they looked like they would glow. As for joggler stripes, I don't actually do anything for joggler stripes. They don't bother me that much. I mean, I think I did try something on this sweater, on some of the stripes, but I didn't do it religiously. I'm trying to see if there's anywhere I can show you on this one. I can't find it right now, but if you go on YouTube and just type in jogless stripes knitting, or check out the Very Pink Knits YouTube channel. She has amazing tutorials on how to do different techniques, and if I did do jogless stripes on anything, I would use her tutorial. I have watched them for how to do jogless stripes, and it's difficult for me to explain without showing you, so I would recommend you go to her channel and search for that video, jogless stripes, and watch what she does, because it works pretty well, to be honest. And if I've ever done that, it would be using that technique. And then I think we've got a couple more questions. It's been a while since I've answered questions, so I'm trying to catch up. So Knit in Solitude asks, he says, when you answered a previous question on the podcast about your audience and how you think it has changed, I was wondering how that applies to the gender of your audience. I assume it's mostly female, but have you any idea of the percentage of men that are watching? I'm at least one of them. And yes, I do actually. YouTube analytics gives me quite a lot of information on, who's watching from where. I mean, I don't know specific people's names or anything, but in terms of what countries, what percentages from different countries and things like that. And it does give me demographics based on gender as well. So I know that 95% of my audience are female and 5% are male. That's pretty much how the audience is split on my channel, on my videos and stuff. So yeah, so I hope that answers your question. You are one of the 5%. And then the next question is from, I cannot pronounce this, I think it's Schnablerina. And sorry if I butchered that. She says, I know that you knit most of your socks at a time and have knit from sock blanks before. I have a sock blank that is 2 strands knitted together and wonder if I need to wind this into 2 balls, or if I can knit straight from the sock blank, pulling both strands more or less at the same time. In my head this should work, but I really don't want to end up in a giant tangle of yarn. This is my first ever sock blank. I've never actually knit from a sock blank with that's prepared with 2 strands held together, like you're describing. I've knit from sock blanks obviously in the past. I've shown them on the podcast, but so you can do by either option, to be perfectly honest. You can wind them into 2 separate balls first and then knit them up, which would be probably the least likely to cause you trouble. Or you could knit from them at the same time, knit from the 2 strands at the same time, which also works and is perfectly possible. I do recall having heard from other people who have done this that they find it quite frustrating sometimes, or that they can get into a bit of a tangle sometimes. Like I said, I have no personal experience with it, so I can't really give you much of a I can't give you any personal advice on that based on personal experience, but you can do either, is basically the answer to that question, just personal preference really. I think I have one more question, but I'm going to leave that for next time because I feel like I've spent a lot of time answering questions this week. If you do have any questions for me, then by all means leave a comment in the questions and suggestions thread. There is one in the in the group on Ravelry, and I pop in and try and answer the questions each week or each time I podcast. At the moment, since Layla has been born and I've kind of started podcasting again, I'm sticking to every 2-ish weeks sort of recording schedule, as it were. It's just works better for me right now. I don't have as much knitting time as I did in the past, so I don't really have as much to show you. If I did it on a weekly basis, doing it every other week just means I have more to show and more to share, more to chat about. So now I'm just going to move to the final section, which is the week in review. And as I mentioned earlier, Layla's now 10 weeks old. She's trying to, I'm trying to make more of an effort to get out of the house more frequently. Last week we had 3 days without Perry. He was off to Atlanta for 3 days for a work thing, and that was an interesting week. By the end of that week, I was pretty much at the end of my tether. I was like, okay, I'm done, I need a break. Whilst he was only gone for 3 days, he got back really late Wednesday night, and I did all of Layla's overnight feeds on Wednesday night, so because Perry had to go to work early on Thursday, so I didn't want to disturb his sleep as much as possible. And then he got back late on Thursday night, so again I put Layla to bed, and then he helped me out overnight on Thursday, and then again I had her all day Friday. So it wasn't really until Friday night when Perry got home that he was able to help me with Layla properly. So whilst he was only away for 3 days, it really felt like I had her all week on my own, and it was quite tiring, very tiring by the end of it. She's very good overnight, to be honest. She only wakes up 1 to 2 times overnight, so it's not the worst situation, to be quite honest. But by the end of the week, I pretty much was at the end. I needed a break, and we pre-arranged this in beforehand anyway. But Saturday, Perry looked after Layla all day, so I could have a day to myself. I went out to a local coffee shop. I didn't go very far. I stayed nearby in case I had to come home quickly for something. But I got 8.5 hours, which is amazing. 8.5 hours at a coffee shop, working on writing up knitting patterns, catching up on loads of podcasts, and just spending a little bit of time knitting as well, and just sort of relaxing and enjoying having some downtime away from Layla. As much as I love her, and I do also acknowledge the fact that I need a break every now and again. And thankfully Perry also acknowledges that, so he's very supportive and very helpful and very hands-on. He's a great dad, and yeah, she's okay, you can go away now. I just got an emergency alert about flash floods in the area, so we're definitely not going out today. We're staying home. Yes, like I was saying, Perry's a very good dad, and to be honest, even though he goes to work early, we're lucky that generally he gets home quite early. He's usually home by around 6 o'clock, so he typically is home early enough to be able to put Layla down for bed, and so he takes over the evening routine with her, and that gives me a bit of a break, gives me a chance to get dinner ready, and while he deals with that. And I think Layla's finally woken up and deciding she doesn't want to sleep anymore. Yeah, I can just about hear her crying, so I'm gonna go see if I can get her to sleep a little bit longer. If not, she might join me for the rest of this podcast, so we will see in a few minutes. I think I managed to get her to sleep again, so we will see how this goes. I don't think she's going to stay asleep for very long, but we will see. I've only got a little bit left to wrap up. So like I was saying, end of last week got a little bit rough for me, but it wasn't too bad actually. The 3 days that Perry was away was pretty good. The Tuesday was like the middle day, so that was not actually I had a couple of things planned for that day. I went out, met up with some of the other mums from the mums group that I go to, and we met up for some lunch, which was really nice. And then I got a text from a friend of mine who said she was going to be in the area later that day, and if I'd be around in the evening for her to pop by. So she did. She came by. I got to see Layla really quickly before I had to put her down for bed, and then we just hung out for the evening. It was just really nice, watching TV, ate some pizza, just hanging out with a friend for a little bit, and it was just nice to have the company at home, which was great. And I really appreciated her making the effort to come out and see me, and yeah, so that was really nice. And then what else did we do? like I was saying, other than today, which has been pretty miserable, the weather generally has been really nice this last week. It's been really lovely, really nice warm weather most days, and unfortunately it looks like the rest of this weekend's going to be a bit of a wet one. But yeah, anyway. But however, I know I mentioned last time that I podcasted that we might be coming to Maryland Sheep and Wool this year. It doesn't look like it's going to happen, which is another reason why I'm podcasting today rather than over the weekend, because I kind of wanted to get this out there as soon as I could, that we weren't going to be able to make it. A number of things have made us come to this decision, which I'm not going to bother going into right now. Just suffice to say that we're not going to make it, which is a shame, and I'm a bit sad that we're not going to be able to go, but we're definitely going to go to Rhinebeck, so there's that at least. And I wasn't too Maryland was always one of those ones that would have been nice to have been able to go to, but I didn't have my heart set on it from the beginning, so it would have been nice to go and just see people, which would have been the main reason for going. I wasn't planning on buying or doing any shopping and stuff like that, so it would have been nice to see friends and stuff, but at the end of the day it just wasn't meant to be. And so a little bit of news about Derek. He went back to the vets again earlier this week. He had to stay in overnight. Poor little guy. He came back, he was quite hoarse. He'd had to be scoped. He had to be scoped. He had a biopsy done and some scans and stuff, so his voice was a bit hoarse. He couldn't really meow properly. He's got a shaved belly. Poor little guy looks a right state. But he's doing much better now. At the moment we're still waiting for the results of the biopsy to come back to get a conclusive diagnosis, but the front runner at the moment is IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, which would mean lifelong medication for him, which quite frankly I would prefer over the alternative, which the alternative is cancer. So yeah, at least IBS isn't life-threatening for the little guy. I'm pretty sure, and the doctor is pretty sure, that that's what that is. All the signs sort of point towards IBS more than anything else, so we're just waiting for conclusive results back from the biopsy. Other than that, we've fallen into a good sleep pattern with Layla for the most part over the last couple of weeks. She usually wakes up once or twice overnight, but the other day, actually Wednesday night, bedtime went a little bit wrong. She normally goes to bed around 7, and we put her down and she went to sleep at 7. For some reason she woke up half an hour later and was like, that's it, I'm done with sleeping, I'm not going to sleep anymore. And she treated it kind of like a nap. So we got her up, we fed her, and just sort of kept her up for a little bit until she finally went to sleep at about 9. And yeah, she went to sleep at 9, and typically I would get her up around 11 to feed her while she was still asleep, so like a sleepy feed. But because she went to sleep so late, I didn't bother doing that. So I'll just leave her until she wakes up herself. And she didn't. She just slept straight through till 7:45 in the morning, which was amazing. First night she slept through, but I kept waking up every hour after like 3 a.m. anyway, because I was like, what's going on? Why is my baby not awake? What is happening? But that was nice. However, last night she woke up twice again, which is her typical, mostly because she didn't drink enough during the day. She didn't have anywhere near enough milk yesterday, so I was pretty sure she was going to wake up. There was no way she was going to sleep through the night, having had as little as she'd had during the day. But that was fine. Not a problem at all. But yeah, so that was absolutely fine. I'm hoping she'll start to sleep through more frequently, but for now it's, I'm happy with it being every now and again, and I'm quite happy with how she sleeps at the moment, to be honest. It's not that difficult to manage. A couple of wakes in the night isn't too bad. I do one, Perry does one, and then we're done. So we both get decent stretches of sleep, which is nice. Okay, well, she's decided she's done sleeping, so I'm gonna go grab her. I'll be back in a second. Okay, so back now. I have a little Layla with me. Hey, she's just woken up, so she might be a little bit grouchy. I don't know if you can hear that. That's just the rain on the windows. Hey, say hello. Say hello. Hey. Pretty much done now. I think I've given you all the news. Hello. She's getting quite good at holding her own head up now. She's a little bit wobbly, but for the most part she's got the head control. Hey. Should Show them how good you are with the head control. Little head bubble. Okay. Okay, let's see if we can get her to smile. Can you give us a little smile? Can you give us a little smile? No. Okay, she's gonna start crying in a minute. She's gonna be hungry. No, you can be good. You can be good. She's just so adorable. For the most part, like I said, she sleeps well. She naps okay. It's a good baby. Yeah. Okay. She's a little bit drowsy from having just woken up, but I will leave that there. I think I will take a little bit of footage with Layla in one of the dresses, and I will probably put that in the intro, so you'll have seen it by now. And yeah, so thank you very much for joining me today, and goodbye from me and the little nugget. Hey? Yeah? Yeah? Oh, hello. Hello. Okay, that's it from us for this week. I'll be back in a couple of weeks probably, and yeah, so till next time, take care. Bye.